You can also use PEAT for forecasting and predictive analytics. So inside PEAT, just go to the Forecast Prediction tab. In here is just a very simple 4-step process. Step 1, enter in your data, or you can copy and paste from Excel if you wanted to. Step 2, choose the analysis and set up your model. Step 3, just run it. And step 4, save the model if you want to recover the model for future use. So let's start with step 1. You can type in your own data if you wanted to, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Or if you're in Excel, you can always copy the data and then just go in here and do a paste if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter how you get that data in. You can also click on options and be able to set up a new profile, open an existing profile if you saved it, or load an example. You can also, we'll load an example in a minute, right here. And here are predetermined or preset, example data sets. So it just makes our life a little easier. We don't have to type in some sample data when we're illustrating how this tool actually works. If you click on options, there's also a data grid configuration where you can, by default, it shows 1,000 rows and 100 columns, but you can go all the way up to 1,000,000 rows and 1,000 columns. You can also do a copy paste. When you do a copy paste, you can remove certain text settings like dollars or commas and so forth. So especially if you're copying like text values and you want to convert them into numerical values in the data grid for you to run. So let's say we have some data, and this is your data that you've copied in. I can do multiple things. I could be done and skip to step 2 if I wanted to, or I can click on variable 4, the header, and let's say, or maybe variable 4 and variable 5, 2 of these. Click on visualize, and now I can draw a chart right here. And these charts, again, could be manipulated as I want to, and go back to the data set if I wanted to. So you can add as many chart visualization as you wanted to. On the second step, once you have data, is you can view the analysis either categorically or by data requirement or alphabetically. There are about 150 of these methodologies and analytics that's available for you to use, and we constantly, update new methods as well. So just to give you an illustration, we can calculate things like analysis of variance to identify if one variable is statistically significantly greater in variance, than another variable. Does it have effect, in other words? So I develop this new product, I develop something else, or I do training, I do some type of intervention. Does it actually create value for me? ARIMA, autoeconometrics, all these are for forecasting capabilities. Different types of charts, Pareto charts, box whisker charts, fuzzy logics, control charts. We'll take a look at some of these. Distributional fitting, regression, parametric, non-parametric capabilities, regressions, stochastic processes to do predictions, trend lines, volatility. So a lot of different methodologies. So let's just say I choose one very simple example, and I choose something like average, AVG. So we all know what average is. So we click on that, and it just tells you, okay, in average, the data that's required is a variable. So for example, variable 1. So I can type in the variable here. So it could be VAR1, or if I don't like typing in, if I make a mistake, I can just select one variable. Let's say I want variable 4. I double click on variable 4, it brings variable 4 over. It doesn't matter if it's capitalized or small caps. And when I'm done, I click run, and it tells me variable 4, here's my data, 684.2 all the way through, and the result for my average is 1347.745. So that's my answer. Very simple. Now let's say if I'm very happy with this analysis, this fancy analytics by calculating average, I can save this and I can say my model for average, for instance, and I can put some notes on here so that I remember what I did. And all I need to do is click on add, and it adds it to this list of saved models. And I can move this, my model up or down as I see fit. So because what I did was I loaded the options and load example, it loaded up all these saved examples that I've done previously. So you can choose, for instance, let's say ARIMA model, auto-regressive integrated moving average. Here's a ARIMA 101 model. It's a forecast prediction. And here ARIMA was chosen. We use variable 1 to forecast. And here are the parameters. So it says historical data, comma. So historical data is variable 1, what the data is. ARPIDMAQ. So these are the 3 inputs that we need for an ARIMA model, ARIMA. So it happens to be an ARIMA 101 model. And everything else is optional, optional, optional. When it says optional means you don't need to put it in, but if you wanted to, you can. And here's an example of the optional variables that you can actually put in if you want to set it up that way. So here's my ARIMA example. We can go through and let's say, here's a chart. Here's my Pareto chart. Here's a control chart to see if my processes are in control, out of control, for instance. Predictive measures, distributional fitting, all these different capabilities. So, definitely spend some time on this, play around with this. This is a very advanced set of tools, very simple to use. And if you created a lot of different models here, like for example, average, you can use the command function if you're an advanced user. And so I can create copy paste average, 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 and let it run, multiple times, average variable 4, variable 5, variable 6, and so forth. So definitely spend some time on this and try to learn how to use this tool.